I would like to thank everybody for listening to my show today, William Wallace for America. Today, this time, is my Finding Freedom Forum. And I say that because I really believe that we're losing our freedoms in America. A lot of people say, oh, no, we're not losing our freedoms. We can still say what we want, think what we want. We still have the right to carry guns. Not if you're in Arizona, evidently, but that's a whole other story. But there's other ways that we're losing our freedom. So I bring on people from different areas, different businesses, different things they're doing to find out what they believe. With me right now is Carl Boyanton. Is that correct? How I said that last?
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
how are you doing today?
Great. Perfect. Thank you.
Well, Carl, where are you located?
Diamond Head, Mississippi, on the beautiful Gulf Coast of Mississippi.
Wow, you're right there on the beach, then, aren't you? Every
Oh,
day.
yeah.
Well, the beach is freedom, right?
It wasn't during the pandemic, but yes.
You would think it would be on the beach. So Carl, on my Finding Freedom Forum, I ask everybody, where are we losing freedom in America? As you heard me when I did the intro, where do you think that we're losing freedom in America?
Well, I think the biggest problem we have is that I think we have a Democrat party that doesn't have any respect for freedom at all. I mean, if you look at what their goal is communism almost, because they want one party rule, which, needless to say, that takes away a lot of freedoms and stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, there's, everywhere you turn, everywhere you look, they're trying to take away a right from you. You make excuses for, the Second Amendment. They have to take it away from us because somebody's going to kill themselves. But the trouble is that, good people don't go out and kill people. The gun does.
Right.
I mean, I carry a gun with me all the time. I'm an enhanced concealed carry permit holder, and I've never shot nobody. I don't know anybody that's ever shot anybody. The criminals are the ones that are shooting people.
Right.
So how about we just enforce our laws, and they won't be able to take that freedom from us. They ain't gonna take it from us anyway.
What's that?
They ain't taking it from us anyway.
Exactly right. Well, yeah, not in Mississippi. They won't get away with that. It's amazing how when a let me say this. While I'm Republican, I have conservative values. I believe I'm more of an American than a Republican, or of course, certainly
Amen.
not a Democrat. But I like to point out the fact that not all Democrats are what we think they are in the narratives. But
Right.
so the problem is when the establishment-minded people, establishment-minded Democrats get in office, we notice a lot of things change. We notice like a power grab in some case, like Katie Hobbs in Arizona. We're noticing a little bit of what appears to be a power grab, and we've noticed that with our United States. Democrats get in office, they turn off the oil spigot. It's a power
Right.
grab. They're now selling our oil reserves to China.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just kind of, going a little bit on what you're saying there. But where do you think we are losing the most freedom in America, not just our Second Amendment rights like we were talking about?
Well, I think it's the Democrat control of the Department of Justice, Homeland Security and stuff. I think the trouble is, you look at Biden, he doesn't care if the Supreme Court finds against him. He just goes out and goes around it. We can't rely on our justice system. Well, we're going to lose all our rights because, these people are, I would have to say, I think they're crazy because, I mean, you're just like with Donald Trump. Most of the time in the Justice Department, you have a crime and you go out and investigate that crime. Well, what we got now is we have a person they want to investigate, and they're going to go through everything they possibly can to find a crime. And then you take and charge him with a crime of freedom of speech.
Are you talking about the J6er?
I'm sorry?
You talking about the J6er?
Yeah. I mean, how do you, Nancy or Hillary Clinton, she denied her election. Stacey Abrams denied their elections. Al Gore denied his election. But now we're going to throw people in jail for denying an election. That's how bad it's gotten in the United States. And the worst part is Democrats, there is no JFK Democrats out there anymore. They've turned so
Yep.
far left right now that, they don't care. It's win at all cost. And we have to start fighting like that ourselves. We have to not worry about hurting their opinion, hurting their feelings.
I'm glad you brought that up. Even if you don't like the Proud Boys,
Right.
even if you don't agree with them or what they're saying, you have to agree with the First Amendment right. And to be able to put somebody in jail for 22 years who wasn't even there, and
Yeah.
they're saying that they planned it, and they didn't necessarily plan it, they just talked about it.
Right.
And it wasn't even planning an event as much as it was talking about it. 22 years, and we're seeing more and more of things like that all over the place. So, no, to your point, I'm glad you brought that up because I've been mad about that lately too.
Well, I mean, you look at the FBI. I mean, FBI set up that deal over there in Michigan, to catch the guys, entice them into kidnapping the governor and stuff. They find out that the FBI is behind that. Again, our Justice Department should be, pushing justice and blind justice at that. To take and get involved themselves in political. Myself personally, if I get elected to Congress, I want to push for a federal law against election interference and post-dated about a year or two. And all these DAs and this U.S. The Department of Justice that were claiming they were going to get Trump, you campaign on getting Trump.
Mm-hmm.
That's election interference because you went out to find something to get him on.
That's right.
You didn't have a crime to charge him with until you got elected and went out and found something. That is just not the use of our justice system.
And who was it that said, "Show me the person, and I'll show you the crime"?
Right. Yeah. And you can indict a ham sandwich. I mean, again, just goes to show you can use the justice system however you want, and that's what they're doing.
And look, and let's say the FBI thing was a silent sting operation gone wrong. The reality is we haven't heard anything about it, and there was no justification. There's no, anything to clear that up. So we
Right.
don't know anything about how that's going. So what do you think that more people can do to fight for, and I say in a peaceful way, our freedoms in America? Obviously, you're thinking our First Amendment, our Second Amendment. But before I answer that question, do you think there's any other ways that we're losing freedom in America?
Well, I mean, tell you the truth, I mean, we lose freedoms with the pandemic. Look how they took control of our economy, which really was unconstitutional. We all acquiesced to the government wanting us to wear masks, don't go outside. Well, I didn't. I mean, other people might have, but take the shots. Again, we lose our freedoms because we don't hold them as dearly as we should. I'm not going to have the government dictate to me, things that I don't see as being common sense. And I can tell you, my partner in one of my businesses is a doctor for 50 years. And day one, he told me, don't take that vaccine. He said, you need to take this regimen of vitamins and don't take that vaccine. So, that's the trouble is they take away our rights, and the media is right behind them. I mean, when they should be arrested for murder for the amount of people that died under COVID because they came out and mocked Trump about ivermectin, hydrochloroquine and stuff, which we know that works. But yet they didn't want to use it because Trump liked it. That's how crazy it's gotten.
Carl, you're hard, man. I tell you what, you sound like one of those hard right wingers. Or are you just an American that puts freedom first?
I'm just an American that put freedoms first. Because I just actually had a conversation with somebody else, and I said, you know what? Unfortunately, the far right and the far left don't do us any favors. We need to come a little bit closer in. But there is certain things that I believe, and that's our rights. And I don't believe the federal government, the state government, anybody should trample on our rights. And I'm a law-abiding citizen, so I shouldn't have to worry about somebody telling me, well, you have to wear a mask. Because again, that should be my choice. Don't go outside in the sun. I mean, just common sense would tell you what they were asking us to do.
I'll tell you what,
wrong.
Let's move beyond like masks,
Okay.
because I understand, but I almost sometimes think that the mask is the distraction, from the establishment or from those that rob our freedoms as a way to, no pun intended, cover up where our freedoms are really being robbed,
Right.
and really being stolen, and how we're really being controlled we're not realizing that we're being controlled in other ways, or we're losing freedom in other way while we're chasing the shiny object of the mask. So what do you think that more people can do themselves to be able to protect freedom and liberty in America?
Well, I think, and this is one of the things I've seen a lot since the last election, is we have so much apathy in our in politics. I mean, I did a 2023 election here, working with the governor, lieutenant governor, a whole bunch of senators and House members, and the apathy is a pandemic in itself because people just don't want to get involved. Everywhere I go, everybody I talk to, it's the same thing I say over and over again. If you wait too long and you lose these rights, we're not going to get them back. And I said, we have to get involved. We got to excite the silent majority like Nixon did back in 72. I mean, we have to get those people out.
That's right.
Otherwise, we're going to lose. We just had our election here, less than 30% turnout to pick the people that are going to be running for governor, for lieutenant governor. And primaries matter. They're like one of the biggest things. If you don't go out and vote for a primary, like in my primary, if you win our primary, because we're so red down here, you win the election because the Democrats don't really have a chance.
Right.
So if you don't go out and vote in the primary, you just voted in who our next congressman is.
And that's an excellent point that you're bringing up. About how people, about the apathy aspect of it, that none of people get involved. I tell people this: when it comes, I'm gonna give you I believe in election integrity. Okay.
So,
and I do a lot of things to protect election integrity. Lori, we'll have you back. We'll have you on in just a few minutes, Lori. Our next guest is up for her time in just a few minutes. And I believe in election integrity, but a lot of people, they want to focus on the machines.
right.
And here's how I put that. So you know what we have to do first before we fix any problems that we may have with the machines? I say may have, because we don't have enough people getting involved as it is. Where we need more people involved is canvassing.
Right.
We need more people getting involved in clearing up our voter rolls. We need more people getting involved with working with our registrar of voters and our clerk of courts to be able to get our voter rolls cleaned up. And then we can talk about other things. And that's how we get more people involved in the election process, so we can get past some of that apathy. So I agree with you. That's what it is. So, Carl, we got a couple minutes left here. What are you doing, you personally, to protect freedom and liberty?
Well, like I say, I support everything out there and all the above to take and support our soldiers, our firefighters, our police. Myself personally, if I get elected to Congress, I will definitely be the outsider that's pushing for, needless to say, I'll be on the same side as the Freedom Caucus, pushing to fix America's politics from inside out. And, every day I'm out talking about this. I mean, the trouble we have is that getting people to understand the big picture, because a lot of people don't read politics like we do. They don't understand what all is going on. So when they go into the poll, they just pick the name they know or they see. So the only way we're going to straighten this up is, education. That's why, like I've told everybody, I said, I was on TV the other day, and of course they cut that part out. I said, I would like to take in any youth group, any high school or college, I would love to go talk to you guys, not me giving you my opinion. I'd like to answer your questions so I can show you that conservatives are actually more for you than you think you are.
Well, a great point, Carl. I like the fact that you say you're running for Congress as a way to be able to get the word out. But I like how you talk about educating people, because, when we think in terms of educating the other side, we get involvement instead of them going, oh, no, you don't. When you force an ideology or a narrative on somebody, no matter how passionate you are about it, or no matter how right it is or correct it is, what ends up happening is they don't want to listen. Right. And then we educate them on conservative values, American values. We show them how it benefits everybody to unite on conservative values, freedom, liberty, and that kind of thing.
And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to answer their questions. I mean, I could tell them all the great things, but I can answer their questions and have a conversation with everybody on each question to let them understand that where we're coming from as conservatives and stuff is way better for them than where the Democrats are.
Love it. Carl, I want to thank you very much for coming on the platform today. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the invite. Can't wait to be on the next time.
Well, I'm gonna have you on again soon. We're gonna talk about as the time gets closer for your election. We'll have you on. We'll actually talk about your race and some things that you think you can do when you get elected to Congress. All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Carl, have a great day. Thank you very much.
You too. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
How are you, Laura and Jen?
Hello.
We're gonna be here today. What a nice surprise.
Good to see you. Can you hear me?
It's great that I can hear you. Okay, Laura, can we hear you? No, we can't hear
You're
Laura.
muted.
Yeah, she had herself all muted up.
All right.
What a great surprise. I got the dynamic duo with me.
It's great to see you, William.
It is. I tell you what, I have you all planned for extra time tonight. I usually do these in 15-minute segments, but the conversations that we've had, at some of the events, I felt are an important way to inform people who listen to my show on some of the great things that we're all working on, that you're working on. And I knew that you would love answering the question where we're losing freedom. So thank you all very much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for
So
having
do
us.
both of you work with the Lori Talley, Texas.org?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about what that is before I ask you my freedom questions. What is Lori Talley, Texas?
No, it's tallytexas.org, and it is an educational
Oh, you're Lori Talley. Okay.
Yeah, I just put it on there.
Lori Talley, Texas. I'm like, I think her name's Lori, but
Wasn't your last name Gallagher? Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's kind of the culmination of the last 2.5 years of learning our system, how our federalist system works at the county commissioners court. And we're trying to teach more people, just like what you were saying, about the power of the county commissioners court in times of declared disaster. In terms of your elections, the county commissioners court has a lot of power. They are the authority that adopts your voting system. So we're teaching others about the power of their county commissioners court and how to canvass. Like you were just saying on the previous segment, we are teaching voters how to do a post-election digital canvas of their election records, learn about their system, learn what records are involved in the chain of custody process, so then they can go and have a meaningful interaction with their county commissioners and their elected representatives and say, hey, nothing reconciled. We pulled these emails, the systems are connected to the internet, whatever. Right. But it can be in a presentation that you know what you're talking about, and you're not just going in there upset because you've lost all confidence in the system.
And specifically on Tally, Texas, we have videos and we have the whole how-to of tallying votes by hand. And so that's one of the most important things about that website, is that it shows citizens how it can be done, why it should be done. And we also have links to poll worker training through our Secretary of State so that they can go on there, take the test, do that, and get certified so that they can work in the election in the precincts. So they can do the tallying and they can work the elections.
Yeah, they get like a real certificate, like from the Texas Secretary of
State.
Wow,
that's awesome.
Like official, you're official. You can now volunteer to do your election. Yeah, you're legit.
Well, we're going to talk more about Tally, Texas near the end of our interview, because I want to tie freedom and liberty into that. So I'm going to ask each of you individually, no copying off of each other. So Lori, I'll let you go first. Where do you think we are losing freedom in America? Where is freedom slipping from our hands in America that we don't realize it?
You know that I am a one-issue woman, and Jen is too. We know that everything that we're experiencing comes from a corrupted election critical infrastructure. And so we are losing our freedoms because our foundational system is broken, and we need to reinsert those hand-marked paper ballots, and we can build from there. Even if we just get a hand-marked paper ballot, we at least have some stability to that foundation.
What about the people who say that it's too hard to count? It's too antiquated of a system. It's not easy to count hand-marked paper ballots. Do you have an answer for that?
We laugh about that.
We do. We laugh about it. Kirk County in Texas, Commissioner Rich Paces, who's been a leader in Texas. He's an elected official. He got a team together, trained them in a very short period of time, trained them. They did 150 ballots. It had 20 races on it, which is a larger ballot in Texas, to have 20 races in an election. And it took them, it took them I think it was 2.5 hours, but they had 100% accuracy. Right there, they had a final result. Everybody agreed on the result. It's a sacred process. You get a pep in your step after you try it. You're like, why did we give this up? So I think there's a movement sweeping Texas, at least, for this big push for hand-marked paper ballots and a return to excellence in our election system.
That's how we save elections in Texas. Jen, what about you? Where do you, I know you are one issue girls, but the reason I ask the question is to try to get a unique answer. But sometimes I get unique information. Where do you think we're losing freedom in America?
Well, I think that we are all seeing it, especially look at these J6 trials and the stuff that they're doing to President Trump. They do not want anyone talking about our elections. They don't want you to dissent. They don't want you to say that it wasn't legit. They want us all to shut up. And we are really seeing that. We're all censored. That's a huge infringement on our freedom to be able to even talk about these things. All of a sudden, everyone is, getting chased down. And so we should all be looking at that. Lori and I always talk about this, about how everyone talks about all these different issues at the border and school boards and all of these things. And we feel that the core really is our elections because we aren't being represented. That's the clearest, most bottom line. We are not being represented. Every single person you talk to is like, I don't want to send any more money to Ukraine, yet they just keep on doing all these things we don't want them to do. And that's when you can really tell that this is broken and we have to fix it. And, you're over the target when they're trying to censor you on every platform in every way.
You made me think of two different things. You got to wonder, at what point do these candidates really realize if they were elected or if they were selected? Or, and I know it sounds a little conspiratorial. I get it, and I do that oftentimes to be able to provoke thought. But if you think about it, at what point when these guys get elected, do they get selected, or do they get to a point once they're in office, they're told, hey, you can be out as easy as you get in?
We think it's before that ever happens. We believe it's a party problem in the primary, because if you're not towing that party line, you're not even getting on the ticket. And you're pretty much, if you don't agree with the politics that they set forth, you're not even going to be allowed to participate in the election. As far as getting elected, you're not going to get elected. And so, and part of that is because it's all set up. We think that these election machines, they have the ability to be able to select people, and they know it, and they get their people in there. Regular people aren't getting elected to office, people that would actually do something.
What's that? What you going to say, Lori?
I said 100 different ways. We've actually done a post-election citizen audit. We've canvassed our election records. We've looked at multiple elections. We've run a countywide judge campaign. Jen and I worked on my husband's county judge campaign here in one of the largest counties in Texas. We got a real pulse for the parties, the activity in the Republican and Democrat parties. There's none. These incumbents aren't even campaigning anymore. The social media companies censor any opponents that are going up against them. Our county commissioner's court accepted $268,000 for the November 2020 election from Center for Tech and Civil Life, which was the Zuck Bucks organization, and infused private dollars. Well, in the following, when it came for the March primary in 22, Facebook would not allow any of the incumbents that had the Fix 2020 message to run campaigns on their social media platform. So, that's where
but yet they can donate millions of dollars to campaigns to help keep them going. But Jen, I want to get back to something you made me think of. You talked about how they've just jailed a Proud Boy for 22 years for what he said. Okay, now look, you don't have to agree with the Proud Boys. You don't have to even like the Proud Boys. But in America, Our justice system is supposed to be blind. Everybody is supposed to be innocent to proven guilty. Look, I got legal friends that are, oh, well, he was proven guilty. That's why he convicted him, whatever. But, the heavy hand of government has not only a lot more money, but a lot more influence over in their system. And when you've got somebody who was jailed, when all they did was speak about something, and they weren't even in Washington, that's a scary thought, and that should give us a little heads up that there are things to be warned about, especially at a time when the Democrats themselves have said, and Hillary Clinton said how much her election was stolen, and other Democrats have claimed their elections were stolen. And lastly, Democrats are supposed to be the people to be a party of criminal justice reform and trying to help get people equal justice under the law, and in this case, they're not. Are you guys seeing the same thing?
That, and it seems to be a lack of personal accountability, right? Like, no one made you go smash a window at the Capitol. That's a slippery slope to go down when you start blaming other people because you're following some ideology, or you believe, the election was stolen. And that guy said the election was stolen, and that fired me up. And I went out there and I broke into the Capitol or whatever. Personal accountability seems to have gone out the window in this country. And I think we see that all over the place, but we really see it with this. No one, can put a gun in your hand and make you shoot it. It's that same concept of, oh, we got to get rid of all these guns because they, kill people, when we know that it's the person themselves. So for somebody to get 22 years or 18 years in prison for, inciting people to do something is scary.
Right. I mean, because it's your, of course, it's your right to say it, and
not even that anymore.
Nobody has to listen. And whether you believe or that there were people provoking it or whatever at the Capitol, the reality is, if they're really vandalizing something, you know what, lock them up. Either way. So let's talk a little bit about what the two of you think that other people can do to get involved to protect freedom and liberty in America. Lori?
We in times of disaster, the power transfers to your county commissioners court or your board of supervisors. It's a county seat. It's a representative constitutional court. It's kind of the administrator of the law. When all the lockdowns came, our county judge signed the lockdown order. He got on the phone with all the religious leaders and said, to protect the flock, we're locking it down, right? And nobody was there. That place should have been filled. I mean, it should have been, every citizen should have been there saying, no, you can make a recommendation to us.
Are you talking about our grand jury system?
No, this is the county commissioner's court in Texas. Some states call it wards or board of supervisors, but it is, you have your county
administrators of your county
and your federal government, and it is the administrator. In Texas, we have a county judge, which is not an attorney, and then 4 county commissioners courts that represent between 30 and 40 voting precincts. So that's where your voting precincts break down underneath. Like, I'm in precinct 2. Commissioner Long is my representative. And so in times of disaster, I could say, hey, Cynthia, I don't want you to lock us down. You go to the church over here. Your grandkids go to our kids' school. Don't do this. Do not lock our church doors down. That's what we're guaranteed as a local government with separation of powers, the county is separate from the state, but connected, right? And so in times of unconstitutional state and federal actions, that county commissioner's court with a constitutional sheriff can provide a buffer and protect you from some of these tyrannical people that are being selected, that are getting in, even though we don't find anybody voting for them. So,
Lori, that is a great education piece. What you just now said, I got to compliment you on that, because a lot of people don't realize how much power the people still have. My last interview talked about the apathy of our voters, when it comes to elections, but the apathy of our citizenry that doesn't realize that there's so many peaceful ways
Amen.
To be able to get involved and stop them and protect our rights and our liberties. And you just made an excellent point on one of them, because if more people knew about this system. Look, I talked to Brunson. I don't know if y'all met Brunson in Springfield.
He came here to Texas for a big rally.
Well, I got to tell you, when he told me about being pro se, and then there's another guy that was there who talks about our courts, about the grand jury system, on how much people can have the say in that. When we look at those instruments to be able to protect our freedoms and liberties, instead of always complaining about what government is getting away with, it's a fantastic way to do it peacefully. So when I ask the question, what can people do? Lori, excellent answer. Appreciate that. Good job. Jen, what about you? Do you have anything to say on that?
Well, I think that people are hesitant to reach out. They just are sitting here. They don't really know what to do. They don't know. They know they're angry about things, but they really don't know. And that is what Lori and I are always out telling them. And I think the citizens have not kept their officials accountable with this, reaching out to them. And I think that people really are now, and it's catching on more and more and more. People are really feeling their wings. They're angry about things, or they're concerned about things. And so reaching out to those local officials first, and then on up to your Congress people and your senators, letting these people know that we aren't just sitting back. We're watching everything that they are doing. We have an opinion about what they're doing. But again, it's very imperative that we get our vote back, so that's the way that we can hold them accountable. So that's why we're always on that. That's why we're always advocating.
You need 3 votes on that county commissioner's court, and you can protect yourself from unconstitutional state and federal action. That court controls the purse. So another thing we're working on is getting high school students involved. This is actually one of the very few things the Texas legislature did in the 88th legislative session. They passed a bill, and it's a student, maybe it was the 87th legislative session, but it is a student clerk bill that allows high school students 16 years or older to participate in our election system, to volunteer and be a clerk inside of the election system. So we're partnering with our children's school first, and trying to get some of those high school students into this program, so that the next generation understands our election system even better than we do.
So it's interesting. They can be involved, but they can't vote.
That's right. So they can work the election. They can actually tally. If they're trained, they can actually tally hand-marked paper ballots. They can perform a post-election citizen audit. They can do a digital canvas of their election records. And that canvassing really gives you the education that you need to work through the various layers of our very complex election system.
I think the canvassing is something that, and now, so you guys, so I'm going to ask you all about that in a second. Let me ask you my last question first, and then I have a set of questions for you, which is why I'm keeping y'all on longer tonight. So what are you guys doing to protect freedom and liberty in America? Jen, you first.
Well, we have our tallytexas.org. We're basically doing education. We're trying to not only raise the alarm. We've been raising the alarm for 2.5 years all over our county. Lori is really great about making connections all over Texas. She's helping people in so many other counties understand what's going on with our election system. It's very complicated, and people's eyes glaze over when you start talking to them about elections. They have no idea a lot of times, especially when they first get into it. And so one of the most important things that we're doing is talking to them about it, helping them understand, because all they hear is, oh, we have the safest election in history. That's just parroted all the time. There was no fraud in that election, and we're like, well, there was, and let us show you the records that we got from our own investigation. We're not relying on someone telling us. We've got these records. We looked at them, and we're able to understand them and understand what happened here. And that is huge for people. They need to understand. It's very complicated. So we try to educate. That's pretty much our goal.
I love this. So your organization does more educating than it does propagandizing, right?
Yes.
Lori, were you going to say something, Lori?
Yes, educating. That's what we're doing. We're trying to, what we discovered along this election adventure was that when the machines were rolled out, they were used with hand-marked paper ballots in a voting precinct, sequentially numbered with an election judge signature on the back, with robust post-election auditing of the chain of custody. And incrementally over time, as the public got disenfranchised by the systems, and they got more complex because they can disenfranchise just by their complexity. It took us a year and a half to find the top voting system expert in the nation, Dr. Andrew Bell, to understand what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so people would be like, let me stop you right there. This is way over my head. And so it did take us to find Princeton University expert to understand our systems were indeed generating unknowable and unrecoverable election results. But if we had that hand marked paper ballot component as the primary component of our election system, these tabulators would at least be safe enough to risk state and national security with all the political power of the American people. And so, you know, people can have feelings on this issue, but if you talk to real cyber guys, and there's these, all of them say, I'm sorry, you know, you can wish it all you want. These systems are not safe from unauthorized, undetected access and manipulation. And unless you have a hand marked paper ballot in the voting precinct with robust chain of custody, these systems are not safe to use to conduct our elections. And so,
I think the machines end up, because I see what you're saying. It's almost like the machines end up becoming a distraction. As we got to work. And this is what I said earlier to a friend of mine who says, our machines are safe, they're secure. There's nothing wrong. People are going to hand mark paper ballots. It's like going back to the Stone Ages. I said, look, I would say that the machines can end up being a distraction sometimes. Let's forget about the machines for a minute. If we work on our registrations, we canvass, we work on our voter rolls, we not only get our voter rolls cleaned up, the byproduct is we get more people involved in the process. And when we get more people involved in the process, it's going to make it harder for anybody to cheat the system, because with more citizens being involved, more citizens being aware, hey, these voter rolls are clean, we know they're clean, now we know we're going to get accuracy, like you said, just by having that cleaned up and having the voter rolls. So do you all teach that with Tally, Texas?
Yes, actually, Dr. Frank is one of the leaders. He's been coming to Texas for the last 2.5 years with his canvassing roadshow and message, and he has gotten Texans to get involved, canvassing, going door to door, meeting with their neighbors. And he, like you, thinks it's that conversion of people that it gets their feet wet, they get involved, it gets them to dive in. Maybe there's 17 different categories in elections that you could focus on in terms of the Texas election code. So you could find something else that fascinates you, that you mail-in ballots or whatever. But we need more people involved in our elections, and that without the machines that kind of took that away in a small neighborhood voting precinct with your 2,000 closest neighbors, Republican and Democrats, working together, watching each other, but doing the sacred process together and coming together at the end and accepting the winner. So we hope to get back to that. We are working with Democrats. It is a bipartisan effort. And it's Democrats have actually been fantastic. So
what's interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up. There's some Democrats, I don't want to get ahead of myself, who don't want to talk about election integrity. And I think, and most of them that I've talked to, or many people that I've talked to that have that opinion that are Democrats, I'll put it that way, they, in their mind, the reason why we want election integrity is to get Trump back in office. And I tell my Democrat friends, it's not that at all. It benefits everybody. And when you look at some of the tactics that are being used, to, I'll just say, infiltrate our elections, it's almost Jim Crow-esque, if you will, because now they're not just disenfranchising minorities from voting, they're disenfranchising your average, American, your average white person, I'll say, because when elections, when people have the perception that their vote doesn't matter, and I've got tons of white friends that say, you know what, my vote doesn't matter, the elections are stolen anyway. What they've done is, what the system has done is, it's disenfranchised people voting their votes because it makes them discouraged to vote when they think the machines or the elections or whatever are hacked into. Am I saying that the right way? Is it something you guys have heard before?
Yes, you're saying it completely correct. And people make that argument, oh, well, human error when you're there, but you get to participate. You can volunteer in your voting precinct in your area of 2,000 voters. You can be there tallying. You can be there poll watching. You can be there as part of the process. And we want to encourage people to say, hey, what can I do right now? I'm concerned about the future of my country. What can I do? Get involved in your elections. It's fascinating. You're going to fall in love with your country, and you can work to get that hand-marked paper ballot as a primary component. And you'll make some friends along the way. You'll probably make some enemies as well. But you will fall in love with your constitutional form of government, and it will lead you to a peaceful solution.
So I just got this thought today. Well, I said, Jen, you want to say something?
Well, I think that as bad as everything is right now, both sides, Democrats are not happy either with this. And they feel like, oh, I don't really want this. And I think that they also see that we do have a uniparty thing going on. And the people that keep saying, oh, we can't count with paper ballots, that's ridiculous. Though that's establishment people on both sides, because they're the ones that benefit from this. But the regular people are looking at this situation and something's up. We know something's going on. What are we going to do about it? And I think that is spurring people on. And, everyone's like, oh, it's very nice to go in with your latte and press a button and all of that. But I think that people don't really trust this, and they know it'll take a little more time to hand tally, but what's it worth to you? Because look what we've got going on. And so that's what we pretty much tell people, like, hey, we have to do something drastic. And honestly, hand tallying is not really all that drastic.
No, not. It's not.
The average precinct's 1,200 people.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. I mean, it's super easy. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right, exactly. So
Basis had his event. He got 400 people to sign up just from this little small town in the middle of the day. It was like 1:00 in the afternoon on Tuesday, and 400 people showed up. And he got 400 people to sign up to tally votes in this small county.
Where was this?
It was in Kerr County, Texas. It's 50,000 people in their county.
So I'll share two thoughts with you. One, I've got friends who say, oh no, the machines are safe and secure. And this is Republicans saying this. I say, look, whether they are or they aren't, I still think we need to start with our, canvassing our elections. But here's what I tell people. I'm like, look, do you believe in voter identity theft? They go, absolutely. I said, do you believe that, your checking account gets broken into? Oh, yeah, my friend Joe's did. What about credit card theft, online credit card theft? They go, oh, absolutely. Home title theft. What about the businesses that get ransomware? Well, if somebody can hack into all of those all those electronics, why wouldn't there be anybody who wouldn't want to hack into our election process also? So the more people we get involved, the more people that we have having hands and eyes on it. And then the last thought that I thought of today that I haven't shared with anybody yet, so you get to hear my new thought, is when people say, and you can use this if you want, by the way, it would be, people say, our elections are safe and secure, leave them alone. They're all of our elections safe and secure. So you know what? It's kind of like for somebody that says they're an atheist. I would rather pray every day and have unlimited amount of faith in God and his creation and salvation and end up being wrong, if that's the case, then not believe and die and get to the pearly gates and go, wait a minute, I wasn't believing all this time, and now I get to the pearly gates and I realize that I should have been believing anyway. Do you follow me? It's kind of like election integrity. I would rather dive in and do everything that we can to make sure our elections are safe and secure.
That's right.
And be wrong. And have somebody say, nope, they've been, here's the proof they've been safe and secure all along, you wasted your time, than to not do anything and find out in 20 years when we don't have a country or counties or parishes or states anymore that we should have done something to protect our elections. I would rather be on the side where the time is.
So there's so many ways that they can hack these things. But one of the things that Lori and I have come to, her research on this matter is incredible, the amount of things that she finds. But what basically, we're not blaming someone in Williamson County. We're not blaming someone like a wizard behind we're not trying to paint that picture. We've found that just purely by the way that they operate, these machines cannot conduct our elections legally, lawfully. That is not, we're not saying that it's a person that's back there, even though it could be. And then there's lots of people that contribute to it overall. But the machines in and of themselves and the way that they operate contribute to us not having lawful elections. And Lori can explain that to you, what she's found.
What have you found, Lori? We got about a minute and a half left before we bring on our next guest. In a minute is Todd Gerhart. He's be coming up in a minute. He has Trump honey, by the way.
So, we have some. We bought some Trump honey.
I've been trying to get a hold of him to partner. You know that I was hoping that was the big idea, was that we want to sell Trump honey too.
Yeah,
well, I'll tell you what.
Republic.
When you finish that answer, I'll bring him on, but I won't. So you can ask.
You're going to arrange it. You're going to connect us, so maybe I can get a
connect her. So Lori, what were you to say you've seen? Todd, we're going to have you on in just a minute. Lori,
we have voting system standards. We have very strict standards of law that say certain things have to happen for these systems to be safe to use. And over time, through these convenience model centers where a voter can vote anywhere, receive any ballot at any location, we've lost this strict chain of custody that we had as these machines were rolled out. So I think a significant improvement in our situation can happen if we all dive in and go for hand-marked paper ballots in a voting precinct. If they tabulate them, that's fine. Robust post-election auditing will be fantastic. So I think there's a compromise here that we can come to, and we're really trying to work with anybody that will work with us on that, as long as we can get those hand-marked paper ballots in voting precincts. So
I'll say this. I'll wrap up our conversation on this before I bring on Todd. Is I say it like this. Let's just say that, like you said, there's no man behind the curtain. I like how you said that. There's nobody behind the curtain. There's nobody. I'm all with you on that, because I always say that is something that I think scares a lot of people away from being involved, because people would rather feel like they have not been lied to all this time than find out that maybe they have been. But let's just say there's no man behind the curtain. I'm with you. There's nothing to fear on that. Just getting people involved in the process, just getting people involved in what's going on, helps secure our elections in a way. But what I was trying to say before is, let's give the people that are operating machines now credit and say, this is an accumulation of years and years and years and years of election systems, right. The laws being changed, machines being changed, the process being changed, and everything gets thrown under the curtains or under the rug, behind the curtains, and nobody does anything to clean it up. And before we know it, we got a problem. That's where we are now. We need to clean up the system. Let me bring on Todd. Let me get him on here with us.
Hi guys.
So
hey, Todd.
But Todd, Lori and Jen are going to join us for just a second. But before I close them out, Lori has been looking for you, Todd. She said they want to sell some Trump honey.
She found me. Yeah.
Thank you, William, for connecting us. I sent you an email and said we met you at Lindell's event this past August and loved the Trump honey bottles.
Okay.
And wanted to connect with you. And we could sell a case for a legal case, right? Raising money to fight for election integrity.
Well, Lori, when we get done here, you call me at 844-45-HONEY.
Okay. Is that really your number?
Well, it goes right to my cell phone. Yeah, that's our number, 844.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. That is an amazing phone number. Well, thank you so much for having us on, William. It has been wonderful to connect with you, and a pleasure.
Lori and Jen, I'm going to tell you something before you head out. Ever since I've met you all, I've appreciated everything that you've done for your community, our country. And I just want more people to realize, that you guys are taking a common sense approach to fixing elections. You're not, and for the people that, those are crazy people that are doing that. I'm like, you two are the epitome of well thought out, procedures, common sense, doing things not only from your heart, but trying to do things in a factual way. You're not driven by narratives. You're not driven by, the media push. You're simply driven by wanting to be able to do something in your community to fix your elections. And I think more people need to know about Tally, Texas. I think more people know about you guys and learn from the good, valuable information that you all have to offer. And I can't.
We're having fun with it too. We're joyful warriors most of the time.
Most of the time. But thank you for getting the message out and helping us spread the message in these times. Without you letting us come on and talk, the message would go nowhere.
I'll be out in Texas soon. All right, guys.
All right. Great to see you. Thank you so much.
Lori, call me in a little bit.
Okay.
Bye. Hey, Todd, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Good to have you on there.
Well, thanks for having me on. I got to tell you, it's interesting. They said people wanting this honey. I got a phone call today, and I didn't know they existed. They called me about 6 weeks ago about the honey, and she called today and ordered a case. The L.A. County GOP party. Yes, there is a Los Angeles County GOP party in California, and she ordered a case, and she said they have about 200 members, and they're growing, she said. So anyhow, it's been fun. So.
Well, what's interesting is, what is the website before we
MakeHoneyGreatAgain.com.
We're going to go to visit Make Honey Great Again. You said
MakeHoneyGreatAgain.com.
So what we're going to do in our interview here, Make Honey Great Again. You're going to see it come up here in a second. And my code is, what'd you say, WWFA?
Yeah, WWFA.
So if people go to Make Honey Great Again, put in my code,
promo code, right?
Then they are going to there we go. They'll get some honey. So my reason for bringing you on, and there's going to be people who say, oh, this is about Trump, this is about thing. But what I want when after we do our interview, I want, this is, in my opinion, it's more of a, how shall we say, a novelty item that's being done in a way to be able to help raise money for people who are doing things in their communities. And while some of it is right-leaning, you're looking to help everybody in our country by giving back. And we're going to go through some groups that you've shared with me that have examples of how you've actually helped people with this. Am I starting this out the right way with you?
You are 100% correct, William, on what goes on with this. It's yes, it is Donald Trump on honey bottle. It looks just like him when you go to the site. We were blessed to go to Mar-a-Lago with it back in December. We travel the country with it on a weekly basis, but we help, the young ladies mentioned Dr. Frank. I was just in Duluth, Georgia with him. He's out there on his own, traveling 300 days out of the year. And we are traveling with him now to help him raise money to keep him out there, to educate people, like the ladies were just saying. On Friday, we got a phone call from General Flynn's people. We will be with him and Roger Stone on September 30th down in Venice, Florida. And the money will go to his PAC. And it's just American values, and they'll pick candidates that they like to run for us around the country. It's everywhere. We're in Georgia with the election people there trying to get the paper ballots. Moms for Liberty. I'm sure a lot of people know who Moms for Liberty is. We're going to be out in Galveston with you guys the end of November, doing something to raise money for your guys, your causes. We met at Mike Lindell's event in Missouri, and we're just, he told us how much money he has invested in all this, so we're helping him. We've donated money to Mark Fincham out in Arizona. I know most of your viewers know who Mark is. Ran for Secretary of State on Kerry Lake's ticket. People talk about election integrity, William, and I call it election reform because we're trying to reform these elections so they have integrity. Because I'd say right now, integrity is not something you would use when you talk about this voting.
So Todd, I'm going to stop you there for just a second. Because we're going to go back to that in a minute because we are on my Freedom Forum today.
Yeah.
And on my Freedom Forum, I, the host, I'm joking about this, saying it that way, get to ask the questions that I think our my listeners want to hear first, which is, where do you think we are losing freedom in America? That's question number one. Where do you think we're losing freedom in America?
Well, I spent Saturday with Steve Friend, the FBI whistleblower. We had an event. I just got back last night, and he talked about what the FBI and these people are doing to Moms for Liberty people, Catholics. They're going after them because we can't speak up and speak our views. I spent the weekend with Laura Loomer. I mean, a lot of people know who she is. You know, we are losing our freedoms here unless we stay in our lane, and we're not staying in our lane. How about the kid in Virginia that wanted to hang his American flags on the back of his pickup truck when he went to school, and they said it's a distraction? Are you kidding? When is the American flag a distraction?
And then the kid that had the Gadsden flag on his backpack and
Right.
got accused of being racist.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, the list goes on. And then the girls and I just talked a minute ago about the J6er who got 22 years. And look, I'm not a Proud Boy fan. I get it, but that's their thing. I'm not a fan. But what I think in America, everybody is innocent until proven guilty, for one. And then I hear people already, oh, well, he was proven guilty, but the reality is he got convicted for something he said. And last I checked, in America, we have the right of free speech in our Constitution. So
you and I talked a lot last week about the J6ers, and I do a lot of stuff. I just had Ashley Babbitt's mom and two others, Sarah Maccabee, with me, and Nicole Rediff. We try to tour together and help them. We have a couple in Texas, Jaleese and Mark Middleton. They went there to pray. I mean, I've met these people at the Reawaken tour. They were holding hands with their head down. They were praying. They weren't in the Capitol. They weren't anywhere near that. And her wrist is getting hit by the batons, and they lift their head up, and they're trying to push themselves away from the officers. And they've got an assault against a federal police officer against them. They're looking at 20 years in prison, and they live in Texas. They were there to pray. They weren't doing anything.
That's what I think, that the people, and I've got friends who are Republicans that will come out and say those J6ers should all spend their life in prison. But and I would agree with them if I knew that most of them were there for nefarious purposes. But and I'm being a little bit, I'm not being accurate when I say that. Let me say it a little bit differently in long form. Because I know how many stories like the one you just told, we're seeing more of them that weren't there, that weren't even in the Capitol, are getting locked up for a long time.
Right.
When that's when we have, and look, for many people, the hate for Trump or the hate for what the narratives say the J6ers did is so great, they become blinded by some of the facts, or they become blinded by the fact that justice is supposed to be blind. And when government overreaches sometimes, that's where I think the lines may be getting crossed.
Right.
Just my observation, I'll say.
You are spot on, William. I mean, this election stuff, you told me about the homeless shelter that's been closed how many years? And all those ballots
in New Orleans. That's what I'm saying, that there's so many of these little stories. There's a homeless shelter in New Orleans that's been closed for a number of years, padlocks on the front door, and they have 500 people registered to vote there that voted, by the way. So, these are the story. These are all the stories around this that, for me, I don't look at. If I were just to look at the J6ers and the narrative that they broke into Capitol, I would agree, lock them up. They need to be, but when you look at all the stories that are mounting up, like the one you just now shared, where the people are praying, where the guy wasn't even there, should he be 22 years for what he said? These are all those gray areas that I think that our justice system may be overreaching. We as Americans have to look at this and be more watchful and mindful, I believe, on all fronts to say, hey, maybe, just maybe, it's a possibility, a tiny chance that our freedoms and liberties are at risk, because when it becomes easier and easier to put people like that in jail, it's going to be easier. The less you do is going to be easier to put you in jail for. So,
William,
go ahead, a little monologue there.
William, Tuesday night I was with Kash Patel in Florida, and he just wrote a book about the January 6th things. It's coming out at the end of September, and he brought it out. People got it. Kash Patel tells the story that on January 4th, and we hear this story, or you hear it, but when it came from him, he was in the Situation Room. On January 4th, Donald Trump did order 10,000 National Guardsmen to come on the 6th because he had a bad feeling. And they turned that request in, and the only two people he said that can approve it is Nancy Pelosi or the chief of police in Washington, D.C. And they did nothing. He told us that his phone rang by Nancy Pelosi on 9:30 that morning on January 6th and said, where are those troops you talked about? And he said, you didn't approve those. And she said, get them in here. We need to get the congressional cafeteria open for my people. She was more worried about getting the cafeteria opened. And I'm standing there with Sarah McAbee, and he said if those troops would have been there, January 6th never would have happened. If there's 10,000 troops there, it would have been totally different, and it wouldn't have gone this way, because our people, respect the law, and again, a lot of them were not our people. But anyhow, he told that story.
I'm going to end our J6 conversation on this, and we're going to move on.
Yeah.
The way I look at it is, I think there's more to it than what most of the public is either seeing or paying attention to. There's more to it, to the story. I'm simplifying it, because where there's things like this, when you combine that with all the other events going on around our country, all the other things that happen, I would like it to make more people up to be more suspect of what is happening around our country. And that's all. I don't excuse any actions. I'm not making excuses. I'm simply saying that because of some of these things that look a little strange, we all need to be more aware of what we have to do to be able to, sound the alarm.
I would agree. And if you ever get to hear Steve Friend speak, he was there. He was in the FBI. He's the whistleblower. I mean, a lot of people know who he is. He wrote the book called Blue Line. It's out there. He talks about what they're doing to Catholics and getting Moms for Liberty, all kinds of people. So
I just want more people to look at the story, not as what they see, just the narrative in the media, but look at everything going on around it as a wake-up call that we need to be more proactive in a positive way in our country, because the more people involved, the less opportunity things like this will happen again, because I don't want to see that happen again. And I agree with you. If the National Guard would have been there, it would never have happened.
No, it wouldn't. And, you and I were there with Mike Lindell, and he's got, a 250,000 people that signed up to have the app to work on these election things. And that army, I'm sure, is growing. I think tomorrow there's something going on in Arizona with Kerry Lake's election. Is that right? There's a report coming out, or a judge report on all these ballots that they did find were not legit. Mark Fincham ran on the Secretary of State. He got clipped on that also. So tomorrow will be a big day in Arizona. So
we'll see. More and more people need to see some of this going on. So you've got Trump honey. What other things are you doing to help people out? Because basically you're doing this. You're giving a lot of proceeds to people to help their organizations, and for what I understand, it's not all. And again, I'm saying this for the people who don't like Trump. It's not all about Trump. I mean, I know it's called Trump hunting. The bottle's Trump, but you help out other organizations that are not political. If I got that right.
Yeah, we do. Moms for Liberty. We help them here in Charleston County. We have U.S. People running for Congress. We have somebody running Congress in Indiana, West Virginia, and Michigan that use the honey as a fundraiser. We have a pastor. I think I shared this with you. There's a pastor in Chicago that's one of the 18 people that were indicted with Trump down in Atlanta last week. He's never met Donald Trump. He's got 5 charges against him, and he's called America's chaplain. He was there at 9/11. He was there at Katrina. He's a former NCIS agent. He's a former police officer in California. His name's Pastor Stephen Lee. He doesn't have this kind of money to defend himself. There's minimum mandatory RICO charges against him. He's never met the president. He was there at Columbine. He went to the mass shooting at the concert out in Mandalay Bay. He's been called America's chaplain, and he's wrapped up in this. He went down to have a church conversation with that Ruby Freeman lady, the young lady that was part of the 4 that were left in that building in there, and he never got to talk to her, and they've got all these charges against him. So the honey's actually being used for his defense fund.
Well, wait a minute. What is this? I don't know about the 4 women that were left in the room, and then what was he charged for?
No, remember when they said, "Oh, there's a water main break and you guys have to leave in Atlanta"?
Okay, got it. Yeah,
she was one of the 4. They have her on tape putting the same ballot through the one ballot continuing to go through. He went down as a pastor to talk to her about the truth, to see what really went on, and they charged him with 5 charges of voter intimidation. There's a number, this RICO thing. He got wrapped up. He's one of the 18. He bonded out on Friday morning after Trump bonded out on Thursday night. He doesn't have that kind of money. They're trying to break these people.
What are they charging him for?
Well, voter intimidation, because he went up on her porch to knock on her door just to talk to her as a pastor. And the daughter answered the door and said, "We don't need a pastor." Well, I wasn't there, obviously, for the conversation. This is what his handlers are telling me. That asked me to help with this honey product. And there's other charges. I wrote them down once. I can't. There's a RICO charge. There's 5 counts against him, and he's never met Donald Trump, and he's involved in a conspiracy with him.
So these are the things that I like to highlight.
Right.
And I've got some Republican conservative friends that will tell me, "You're crazy. You're talking with these crazy people about these crazy stories." But what I find oftentimes is 2 things. People would rather believe a soft lie than the hard truth.
Mm-hmm.
And what I also find is that sometimes people's hatred for Donald Trump is so much greater than what actually happened, that they don't care what actually happened,
Right.
because their hatred of Trump is so much greater. In a case like this, here's a lot of stories that we've talked about in this conversation. A lot of little mini stories that we've shared that's why I brought you on, Todd, because we've had these conversations off air, and
Right.
I thought it was really important to tell the story. A lot of these little stories that you've got that nobody's either paying attention to, they're not seeing, or they're not hearing them in the news because they're not being perpetuated in the news, for one. But people like you tend to bring this up, and that's the way we can inform people that, hey, there's more to the stories that are going on. We need to all pay attention, because while we might not like the actions or we might not like the person, we
Right.
have to respect the law. We have to appreciate that our Constitution is here to protect our rights, not government's rights, when we do something that they don't agree with.
Well, and you can look at the Hunter Biden stuff, William. I mean, we could sit here and talk about that for the next half hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Of the egregiousness of that, and not being charged and getting a hand slap, which they're not going to allow that now. But you can Google Dr. Stephen Lee from Chicago. People can Google him and look up and see what. It's sad, but hopefully he'll get out of it, and the bees are going to save America. That's what we talk about. So.
I love it. I love it. The honey is just a way to be able to help funnel some money. So let's talk about that before we wrap up the show, Todd. Where do people go to? I've been having the website going down at the bottom.
Right.
MakeHoneyGreatAgain.com. If they put in the code WWFA, does it get them a special discount or anything like that?
No, it's a promo code for you, William. We to help you and continue your travels. It's not free when you travel to Springfield, Missouri. It's not free for you to go to Galveston, Texas, and all your different travels that you guys are going to do. It's not free when Dr. Frank goes out travels. So we're just here to help people like yourself and other people. We're helping General Flynn, Ed Henry, formerly of Fox News. He has a promo code. and he's donating his money to Cash Patel for his things with the J6ers. You know, I went to East Palestine, Ohio, back in February when President Trump went there, and we took the honey. We raised $14,000 that day with different people, you know, donating things to help those people out there in East Palestine. So they go to makehoneygreat.com and punch in your code, and we're going to continue to help you and keep your message going, you know, across the airways. And if anybody else wants us, you know, they know how to get a hold of us. They can go to that and get a hold of me. We're going to help the young ladies in Texas to get their word out. You know, it's a team effort. And I tell William, you know what? It's not a bobblehead. It's not a T-shirt. It's a hat. It's just pure raw honey. Real quick on the honey, we have 11,000 hives in South Carolina, and it's harvested. It's brought into a small county of only 38,000 people, and 80% of them live below the poverty level. And the co-packers hiring more people. The people that work there are getting more hours. It's all done by hand, and it's just pure raw honey. And it's a big bottle. It's 16 ounces, so it's a big bottle of. And now we got the Republicans out in LA County are going to get it. So
well, it's interesting. I said that 16 ounces that gets you where your total packaging are deliveries right over a pound.
right.
You know, with 14 ounces, you can have packaging and still be under that 16-ounce price.
Yeah, but we wanted to. When you see this bottle, it looks just like him. And we were in a video. Ivanka did a video of her dad, a video collage, and they put the honey in there, so they all know about it. So
love it. Well, Todd, I want you to hang on 1 second while I
Sure.
close the show. So hang on, you know, till I close out the show,
Yep.
and I want to direct more people to you and find out more about you. We're looking forward to seeing you and everybody else. I thank you for joining me tonight. I know the interviews we had were pretty diverse, and I hope you enjoyed a lot of the different opinions. Make honey great again. We had a guy running for Congress at the beginning, and don't forget my Texas girls, because when you go to their website, you're going to find out things that they're doing to help inform people in a non-narrative way. And this video will be on YouTube, it'll be on Rumble, and it'll be also on all podcast apps. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I really appreciate y'all, and have a great night.